is Dr. Sam Rosenfeld. Thanks so much for hanging in there this morning. And what a political year this has been. Have you ever, I know it's a stupid question, but I'll ask it anyway. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No.
There we go.
Has.
With that out of the way.
History in the making.
I want to ask you about it's hard to pick which item to talk about here, but I'd like to ask you about strategy, political strategy. So we know where we are right now in terms of the polls. Hillary has a lead that seems like it's a pretty good national lead, but what really matters is the Electoral College. And she has a very, very big lead right now when it comes to the Electoral College, and it looks like it's a difficult run for Trump to find a pathway to victory on November 8th. So, with that said, Hillary, very unpopular. Wouldn't it be easy for Donald Trump to grow the tent, to bring more in? Instead, he's spending his time attacking John McCain and Paul Ryan. Show me the strategy. I'm confused.
Well, the problem that Trump had going into this debate on Sunday, in terms of strategy, is he had a kind of immediate, proximate goal he needed to achieve, and it was different from the long-term goal of winning the election. The immediate goal he had to do was to, speaking of unprecedented things, stop what appeared to have been a kind of cascade of institutional party retreat and disavowal. He needed to actually stop the Republican Party from formally abandoning him as a nominee a month out of the election. The way he did that, and it turned out he succeeded in doing that, was have a debate that was quite aggressive in sort of taking arguments to Clinton in a way he hadn't in the first debate, and clearly energize a base of support around very high salient sort of attacks on Bill Clinton, on sort of rhetoric about promising to put Hillary in jail if he's elected president, et cetera. All of that really did do the job of re-energizing a sort of core base of support in the Republican Party among Republican voters for Trump. And you saw, lo and behold, all these sort of institutional leaders who were on the verge of openly breaking with Trump. By Monday, they weren't doing it. The problem was the way he went about doing that is calculated to alienate the very supporters, the very kind of demographics within the normal Republican coalition, particularly Republican women and college-educated Republicans, that he would need to, as you say, grow the tent.
Yeah,
so
and that's the difficulty in the strategy. That sure, his base loves this, and he's secured his base there, but he's got to bring in women. He's got to bring in that college-educated voter as well to beat her, right?
He does, and I don't think there's any. I think there's no way I can peek into the mind of Donald Trump. But, I think were I Donald Trump, I would be looking at this and, in a sense, knowing that there's no real way within the next month to do that. And given that, you might as well pick a fight with and find someone else to blame for what's going to end up being a defeat in November. And so what he's doing is picking the Republican establishment to blame.
How about the theory that I really like is that he's planning with the Breitbart guy who's on his team now, and
Steve Bannon,
and Roger Ailes, that he's planning this right of Fox News TV network that they're going to launch. And if that theory, I mean, you listen to the rhetoric right now going after McCain and going after Ryan and going after establishment Republicans, boy, I got to tell you, that makes that theory kind of viable, maybe?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that theory as a claim that Donald Trump has never actually wanted to get elected president, I don't believe. I think Donald Trump certainly has been in it to win it in this general election, but it would absolutely not surprise me whatsoever that coming out of the fallout of this kind of extraordinary internal party conflict followed by a defeat for Trump in November, he's already surrounded by a bunch of, exiled media moguls, and they've got a approach to a kind of gonzo approach to American politics that has a clear audience out there. So I wouldn't be surprised to see
I know the Democrats like to say this is the end of the Republican Party, but this network, if this was really true, if this turns out to be true, and we'll only know months after the election, if this really is true, what problem does that pose with the Republican Party? It really, I think, is a problem. Am I right?
Yes. I mean, it would be an extension of problems that the Republican Party has already started to have a kind of reckoning with, not just this year, but over the last 6 or 7 years, I would say. You have, the story of the modern conservative movement and its interaction with the Republican Party has been in part a story of sort of symbiosis and the Republican Party making a lot of gains and expanding its power in part due to the energy and mobilization of a kind of conservative media and intellectual infrastructure. The problem is, within the last decade or so, sort of after the Bush years, that very potent media and communications infrastructure has started to cause more headaches than discipline and power among the Republican Party. So you saw that first in the House, with the Tea Party, again, the Tea Party insurgency in the House, which on the one hand was a huge boon to Republican electoral fortunes, but then made the task of governing and deal-making and leadership increasingly untenable for John Boehner until he eventually got run out of the House.
Yeah.
That was, I think, a glimmer of a dynamic on the Republican side in which there are media institutions that are ready at all times to mobilize voters into thinking that their leaders are selling them out. And that tendency is what opened up space for someone like Donald Trump to take the nomination despite the opposition of Republican establishment leaders, and it's going to create further headaches down the road in the wake of any kind of new Trumpy kind of media organization.
Talking to Dr. Sam Rosenfeld from Hamilton College.
We've seen Trump go from improbable candidate to Republican nominee for president. If he wins, do political experts take a look and say, okay, we've got to totally, revise our strategy when it comes to elections? You talk about this strategy typically wouldn't work, but is it just Donald Trump? Is it he personally, or is it his way of sort of campaigning and coming out and shooting from the hip and speaking his mind?
Well, certainly political experts, political scientists are going to be revising our thoughts about how American party politics works in the years to come. Even if Trump loses, I think there is unquestionably going to be lingering effects on Republican Party actors and the kind of policy agenda of the Republican Party. I do think Trumpism outlasts Donald Trump and his sort of specific personal celebrity and brand of politics. So much more of an emphasis on issues of kind of nationalism, of hostility to cosmopolitan globalism, et cetera.
Yeah.
That's going to get emphasized more by more and more rank and file and down ballot Republicans. In some ways, the recipe of in some ways, Trump himself really is a unique person. The combination of celebrity and money and a degree of kind of I would say shamelessness or willingness to shoot from the hip completely, that I can't really see that as a recipe that anyone else can package together.
Only this stuff works for Trump. I mean, look at Trump's numbers go up, Billy Bush gets fired. It's pretty simple. It doesn't work for anybody else. Last question for you. I am on this program in London every once in a while. They're very fixated on this race in England, Great Britain, and are we going through, leading right up to the big vote there? Nobody ever expected what was going to happen there. A breaking from the European Union. Are we in the midst of this? Could we get one of those surprises on November 8th?
What I would say about that is if you go back to the Brexit vote, it's completely true that everyone was shocked by the outcome. But it's not because the polling leading up to the outcome was telling an inaccurate story. The polling was razor close at the point of the vote. It's just that nobody believed in their heart of hearts, nobody believed that the polling was accurate. They thought at the last minute people would,
Yeah, this will never happen.
Yeah, and so it was a lot of kind of wishful thinking on the part of people who then were shocked at what happened. So I would say that the Brexit lesson is, do look at polling, do look at the polling averages and aggregate polling, and that will give you a useful sort of indicator of what's going to happen. And as of right now, anything is possible, and shocks have happened, but I don't see that happening here.
All right,
famous last words.
Famous last words. We've been saying it all year long on Trump. He's dead now. He can never survive this one.
Exactly.
Dr. Sam Rosenfeld, thanks so much. We'll have you again. We really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you.